Good afternoon. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it right now and hit the bell. YouTube is actively suppressing the reach of military analytical content. The algorithm deliberately buries it, so without your likes and notifications enabled, many people simply won't see this episode. You decide who gets access to this information, so help the channel out. Today we have a packed episode: geopolitics, a Ukrainian political scandal, and a detailed breakdown of the front across all directions. Geopolitics, Putin in China, and the US Senate vote. Putin arrived in China yesterday evening. The main news from there is expected today. We're watching developments closely. Meanwhile, an interesting story came out of Washington. The US Senate passed a resolution to end the war with Iran. What's notable is something else. For the first time, a portion of Republicans sided with Democrats and voted against Trump's position, against his Iranian adventure. This is no small thing. A split within the Republican caucus is a serious signal. The fact is that Trump got no victory out of the Iran campaign. Yes, strikes were carried out against Iranian facilities. There was a lot of noise. But Iran's nuclear program was not destroyed. The regime held, and the overall situation in the Middle East has only become more tangled and dangerous. Republicans see this and understand. Covering for a failing policy is getting harder and harder. Hence the reversal. Ukrainian panic, the Kharkiv front that doesn't exist. Now about Ukraine, or more precisely, about the latest wave of panic sweeping through the country. AFU Commander-in-Chief Siversk yesterday joined the chorus of voices screaming about a threat from the north, that Russia is seriously preparing an offensive on Kyiv and Chernihiv, that the Russian General Staff is developing corresponding plans. There was already a separate video on the channel covering this topic. If you haven't watched it, find it. It came out very recently. I won't go through it in detail again, but let me remind you of a few numbers, because they put everything in perspective. From the Russian-Ukrainian border to Chernihiv is roughly 50 kilometers. To Kyiv, about 100. To open a full-scale front on these directions, you need a force grouping of at least 100,000 men. And that's the most conservative estimate. Neither Siversk nor Zelensky can give a coherent answer to one simple question. Where is this grouping? Where is the documented transfer of tens, let alone hundreds of thousands of soldiers toward the Belarusian border? Nowhere. No one is tracking any such troop movement, not Ukrainian intelligence, not Western satellites. So where do these claims come from? The answer is simple: the Yermak scandal. There was an urgent need to redirect attention. And so here comes, the Russians are marching on Kyiv. Works every time. Everyone understands that the resources for opening a Kyiv front simply don't exist right now, but the news cycle is already occupied with this narrative instead of what actually matters. Now the front. Let's go through all directions. Kharkiv direction, north grouping. Let's start with the good news. Over the past 24 hours, the north grouping delivered a confident result. Advances were recorded across a front more than 6 kilometers wide. And not just infantry movement, but genuine establishment of control. The village of Volochyivka came under Russian control. Objective control footage from multiple points confirmed this yesterday. The advance reached up to 2.5 kilometers, with Russian forces reaching the southern bank of the Vovcha River in the area of this settlement. In addition to Volochyivka, Chykivka also came under control just beforehand, again with video confirmation. The logic of the next steps in this area is clear. Pokalyane was taken a little earlier, now Volochyivka. The obvious next move is straightening the line of contact, specifically taking the village of Krasny. Russian troops have already entered the village, and fighting is currently underway in the residential area. There is a strong likelihood that Krasny will come under control before the end of May. The bridgehead east of Vovchansk is being reinforced and expanded. The grouping is working steadily with no drop in tempo. At the same time, one unpleasant development needs to be mentioned honestly. In the area of Sinelnikov and Lyman, these are settlements in the Kharkiv zone, not to be confused with the city of Lyman on the Krasny-Lyman direction. The AFU carried out a counterattack. Ukrainian forces advanced more than 600 meters south of Vovchansk and recaptured part of previously lost positions. This information is acknowledged by Russian sources themselves, which lends it credibility. How well the AFU will manage to hold what they recaptured remains to be seen. Fighting continues. Overall, the North grouping is maintaining a very high tempo. It's possible that May's results on this direction will turn out even better than April. And April was already a very strong month. When we discussed May's prospects a month ago, it seemed like North might slow down somewhat, but that hasn't happened. Sumy direction. From the Sumy direction, news is coming in from two sectors. The first, the Novopavlivka area. Russian forces are expanding their zone of control in forested areas and improving positions. The last confirmed data came from Taratotine, where footage from Russian military positions was also obtained. Today there are reports of expanding control in these forests, but no confirmed map changes have come through yet. The second sector, the area of Novosich, Kropyvshchina, Huliaipole and Marino. Russian forces are pushing from Huliaipole toward Kropyvshchina and Marino, and also pressing from Korchakovka and Varachine toward Novosich. No confirmed changes at this time either, but active fighting is ongoing along the entire contact line on this sector. Kupiansk direction. The situation in Kupiansk is tense, though no confirmed map changes have occurred. The main fighting is in the Kucherivka and Kupiansk-Vuzlovyi areas. Russian forces are pressing from Sinkivka and Petropavlivka. The AFU are holding their positions for now, assisted by active FPV crews and small assault groups that are not merely holding on, but attempting to counterattack and reclaim lost ground. Notably, in Kupiansk-Vuzlovyi, the situation is no longer purely defensive. Ukrainian troops are themselves attempting to advance on Russian-held positions. This suggests the situation there is not yet critical for the AFU. No confirmed changes at the time of recording. Lyman and Krasny Lyman direction. On the situation at Stavki, there is an important clarification that answers a long-standing question. On many maps, this village is shown as having fully passed under Russian control back in the previous year. But sources on the ground clarify this does not reflect reality. Fighting for Stavki is still ongoing. Part of the settlement is held by the Russian army, part by the AFU. That is precisely why there has been no movement from Stavki toward the northern outskirts of Lyman, not because it isn't planned, but because the village itself needs to be fully taken first. Announcing is one thing, actually controlling the ground is another. On the Krasny-Lyman direction, the main events are currently unfolding around Zaporizhzhia. Russian forces are expanding their zone of control in the Kostiantynivka and Prishib areas. Some of these positions were previously confirmed and mapped, but no further movement has been recorded since. Today brings reports of fierce fighting on the approaches to Lyman itself. Borova direction. Things need to be stated clearly here, because a number of pro-Russian sources have already declared Borova fully captured. This is premature and does not correspond to reality. Russian forces have established themselves on the eastern outskirts of the settlement, advanced roughly 3.5 kilometers from Borovska Andriivka toward Borova, and expanded their zone of control. That is a fact. But claiming a full capture is premature. No Russian Federation flag has been raised over the center of the settlement, and that is the standard confirmation in such cases. Confirmed video footage came only from the eastern outskirts, so Borova is in progress, but not taken. Sloviansk direction. From the Sloviansk sector today, there are also no confirmed map changes, but there is enough reporting of activity. Russian forces are working across several sectors simultaneously, expanding control in the Kryva Luka area, advancing toward Piskunivka and Mykolaivka. Expansion is also being recorded west of Kaleniki, including in forested terrain, and reportedly with some success. There are reports of pressure from Lipivka and Fedorivka Druha toward Rai Oleksandrivka. Reports of consolidation on the eastern outskirts of this settlement have been made repeatedly, but no video confirmation has come through yet. Without that, the map doesn't change. Kostyantynivka direction. This is arguably where the most interesting news from the past 24 hours is coming from. 3 positive developments at once. First, Molokhariv is almost taken. Russian forces now control roughly 90% of the village. Only the outskirts remain with the AFU, and it is clear they will be pushed out entirely in the near future. Once that happens, the encirclement of Kostiantynivka from the east will become significantly more secure. Second, control has been established over Hruska Balka, a ravine. At first glance, it may look like just a patch of terrain, but tactically it matters. Control of the ravine increases pressure on the eastern part of Kostiantynivka. That leverage now sits with Russian forces. Third, advances were recorded directly inside the city itself, in the residential sector. 3 streets came under control: Belinskoho, Radishcheva, and Volgoradska. It would be premature to say the AFU's defense is collapsing. It's more accurate to say it is slowly but steadily sagging. But look at the configuration. The front has already taken the shape of a semi-encirclement. With that kind of configuration, a moment eventually arrives when the pressure becomes critical and the defense cracks. It's inevitable. The only question is timing. Ukrainian military bloggers are assessing the situation pessimistically. According to available information, only heavily battered battalions remain here for the AFU, with a severe shortage of infantry. Stopping the advance with drones alone is not working. Russian assault groups continue pressing from multiple directions. Flanking pressure is coming from the south via Huliaipole, and drones, artillery, and heavy aerial bombs are regularly hitting the urban area held by Ukrainian forces, Dobrovolska direction. One confirmed piece of video footage came in from the Dobrovolska sector, from the outskirts of Novopavlivka. Russian forces struck an AFU armored vehicle on the outskirts of Novopavlivka with FPV drones, triggering ammunition detonation, target destroyed. The strike distance from the line of contact was up to 12 kilometers, which speaks to the operational depth of drone employment. Beyond that, there are reports of expanding control around Hryshin, movement toward Novoalexandrivka and Vasilivka, and pressure toward Mern. No confirmed map changes. Heavy fighting is also ongoing around Novy Donbass and Belitske, without changes. Overall, the Dobrovolska direction remains quiet in terms of major shifts. It appears something is being prepared there. Troop transfers suggest as much, but an escalation is unlikely before June at the earliest. Huliaipole direction. From the Huliaipole sector today, news is coming only from the Vozdvijenka area and its surroundings. Russian forces are expanding their zone of control toward this settlement, both to the north and south of it. According to available information, the advance amounts to at least 1 kilometer along the Vavarivka-Vozdvijenka line. Forward positions came under AFU fire. Worth noting, some pro-Ukrainian sources have mapped the surrounding territory as AFU controlled. However, this contradicts the evidence. Footage from those same locations showed Ukrainian troops being eliminated by Russian drone strikes. Under those circumstances, any claim of AFU control over that terrain doesn't hold up. Changes are added to the map only based on reliably confirmed data, and that principle is non-negotiable. Zaporizhzhia direction. The situation here remains tense. Stepnohirsk, a settlement that previously came under partial Russian control, is now the scene of heavy fighting for its southern portion. Ukrainian sources are claiming Stepnohirsk has been fully recaptured. This does not currently correspond to reality, but the situation there is genuinely extremely difficult. I'll be honest. I'm preparing myself for the worst-case scenario, not because I'm giving up, but because that's the right approach. If something turns out better than expected, that becomes a reason for cautious optimism. Getting your hopes up and then being let down serves no purpose. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian government has begun the forced evacuation of children from the Novopavlivka district. According to available information, forced evacuation of adult residents may begin soon as well. Ukrainian sources are stating directly that Russia's summer offensive is aimed toward Novopavlivka and Zaporizhzhia. Whether these predictions are accurate and on what timeline, it is too early to say. Novopavlivka direction. Reports from Novopavlivka describe an expansion of the zone of control from the Belikovka side. According to available information, Russian forces crossed the Solena River, advanced 2 kilometers, consolidated, and are now moving toward Chuhuyevo. There are also reports of movement from Ivanivka toward Fedorivske. No confirmed map changes yet. The situation on this sector is complicated by the terrain. Novopavlivka remains largely under AFU control, and the approaches to it consist of open fields between Novopavlivka, Dakhna, and Orakov. This is ideal territory for Ukrainian FPV drone operations. There is no cover, and any movement is immediately visible. Add to that barbed wire and anti-tank ditches, and it becomes clear why the pace of advance there is extremely slow. Vehicles on quad bikes simply get tangled in the wire. The terrain dictates the tactics. Summary of the past 24 hours. Over the past 24 hours, one settlement and approximately 8 square kilometers of territory came under Russian control. The AFU recorded no advances, with the exception of the already mentioned counterattack in the Sinelnikova and Lyman area near Vovchansk, where Ukrainian forces recaptured part of their positions. The North grouping continues to hold a high tempo. The Kostiantynivka direction remains the most dynamic. Across other sectors, force accumulation and positional fighting. That's all for today. If this episode was useful, leave a like. It matters more than it seems. The algorithm pays attention. Subscribe to the channel, enable the bell notification. See you in the next episode.